No, I will not go on the racetrack with those brake pads. Absolutely not. I'm too old to be hitting this wall head on. Absolutely not. They said, well, we would make up a penalty.
There is a moment in every driver's career where the car stops being a race car and starts being a risk. For Denny Hamlin, that moment arrived on a Saturday afternoon at Iowa Speedway when his brake pedal stopped doing what a brake pedal is supposed to do. He asked the National Association for Stock Car Auto Racing for permission to fix it. He offered to accept punishment for fixing it. He offered to accept a second punishment the following week. Every answer came back the same. Then he asked what would happen if he simply refused to get in the car at all. The response he says he received is the reason we are here. Within moments of hitting the track on Saturday at Iowa Speedway, Denny Hamlin knew something was wrong. He did not have adequate or consistent brake pressure. Crew Chief Chris Gale recognized immediately that this was not a small complaint. This was the kind of problem that could end their race before it ever began. And Denny Hamlin was not alone. His Joe Gibbs Racing teammate Chase Briscoe began suffering from the same symptoms, and Crew Chief James Small reached exactly the same conclusion. So did their alliance partner at 2311 Racing, driver Riley Herbst, working with crew chief Davin Restivo. Those three cars, alongside the number 23 machine of Bubba Wallace, spent well into the morning garage hours making an after adjustment, simply hoping to give their drivers a fighting chance. Here is the detail that makes this more than a bad afternoon for one team. The other top-tier Toyota organization, Legacy Motor Club, had no brake trouble whatsoever. Car Chief Austin Pollack of the number 43 team explained the difference in a single sentence before the race. JGR and 2311 run a different package than we do. That is the tell. This was not the racetrack punishing everybody equally. This was a specific package run by specific teams behaving in a way nobody expected. The obvious accusation the moment this story broke was that Denny Hamlin had been experimenting with something exotic right before the playoffs and had gotten burned for it. Denny Hamlin addressed that directly on his podcast, and his explanation went the other way entirely. We tried to run something a little bit different, not unknown. He was not testing the edge of anything, he was borrowing. Other teams have run it quite a bit before. I wanted to lean a little bit on 2311. They had been pretty strong at this track over the last year or so. The reason was simple. Denny Hamlin has never found his rhythm at Iowa Speedway since the venue joined the Cup Series schedule. I kind of wanted to lean on their setups a little bit more this time around since I hadn't had success at this racetrack quite yet. I hadn't found what that good feel is around here yet. So, I needed to put someone's setup that has run well and then let me learn from there. He put a number on how proven that package was. By his own estimate, that combination had been run roughly 20 races or more across all the cars he was aware of, and possibly more beyond that. And he took full ownership of the decision in the bluntest terms he could find. My message to my team, and I'll take responsibility for it, is that I can't hit my ass with both hands at this racetrack, so put someone else's setup in that has been pretty good. Then comes the detail that turns this whole weekend on its head. When the team went to install that borrowed setup, they asked Denny Hamlin a follow-up question. Did he want 2311 Racing's brakes as well? Because if he wanted to be exactly like those cars, the brakes were quite a bit different from what he normally ran. His answer was that if it was fine for them, it would be fine for him. And so that was the approach they took. That answer is the entire weekend. And the verdict on where it went wrong came later. And yeah, just realized pretty quickly that it was not going to work for me. It was not the rotors. It was not the calipers. Denny Hamlin said his team is under the conviction that they simply had a bad batch of brake pads. Simply because everything else is the same for all the other cars. Now we need to talk about the rule. Because without it, none of what happened next makes sense. The National Association for Stock Car Auto Racing is generally reasonable about brake components between qualifying and the race. Teams were allowed to drain their brake lines, a process referred to as bleeding, without any penalty at all. They can replace rotors if those rotors are cracked. This is treated as a safety matter, and both the number 11 and number 35 teams made that change at Iowa Speedway. There are limits. Teams are not permitted to switch from a heavier short track and road course rotor to a lighter super speedway or the other way around once that decision has been locked in before technical inspection. But calipers, brake lines, and master cylinders can be changed. Denny Hamlin explained the logic behind that, and it is sound. Those components are mandated parts. The sanctioning body single sources them, so the position is that if one of those parts is defective, that is on the sanctioning body, and the team is permitted to change it and accept it to the rear penalty. Brake pads are the one exception, and they are the exception for a specific reason. Teams choose their own pads. The sanctioning body does not supply them. So a bad pad is not treated as a part failure, it is treated as the team's own mistake. And you cannot change them. Not overnight, not before the race, not even if you volunteer to be punished for it. The only available route is a lengthy stop behind the wall after the green flag has already flown. Denny Hamlin described the trap plainly. What is interesting, he said, is that the pads are the only thing teams are not allowed to change overnight. Not even with a penalty. You cannot simply go to the back and change it. So it puts you in a box where, if you have made the wrong decision, or if you have what you deem to be defective pads, you cannot get out of the box. Before going further, this rule deserves a fair hearing, and the most credible person making that case is Denny Hamlin himself. He understands exactly why it exists. And that's their argument, right? We do not want 36 teams having a qualifying brake pad and a race brake pad. That is a real concern. If pad changes were freely permitted after qualifying, every team in the garage would run a soft, aggressive, short-life pad for one flying lap and then bolt on a durable race pad before the green flag. The rule closes that loophole completely, and it closes it the moment you allow any exception. So the rule is defensible. The question Denny Hamlin raised is whether it has a door in it. What follows is best understood as a negotiation, with Denny Hamlin raising his own punishment at every step. The first offer: let the team change the pads and send the number 11 to the rear of the field for the start. That is a standard accepted penalty in the sport. The answer was no. The second offer: Denny Hamlin escalated. He volunteered to start on pit lane, which is one of the harshest starting positions available to any competitor. I told him I'd start on pit lane. We have a major problem. The response he received did not dispute the danger. It disputed the paperwork. And they were like, that's not the way it's written right now. And he pushed back on the grounds of safety rather than speed. And I said, I know that. However, this is where common sense has to come into play, that this is not for some strategic advantage. This is to hopefully keep my car from blowing a rotor or going into a corner dead straight and wiping someone or myself head on into the wall. He then described the fix he wished existed in the document itself. That's what we're trying to do here. So that's where I wish there was an asterisk at the bottom of it saying, but we will use common sense. The third offer: Denny Hamlin went further still. Start on pit lane at Iowa Speedway and then start dead last the following week as well. 2 races of pain for one set of brake pads. His argument was that a penalty that's severe would deter anyone from abusing the exception. Nobody would want to take that penalty. It is a rough punishment, but it would at least give a team some avenue out when a mistake has been made. That was turned down too. The final question: with every reasonable offer exhausted, Denny Hamlin asked what would happen if he simply declined to drive the car. Speaking of making some penalties up, listen, I did my best in that hauler, laid out my case. I said, what if I just tell the team I will not be going on that racetrack with those brake pads? I'm too old to be hitting this wall head on. And this is the sentence that traveled across the entire sport. They said, well, we would make up a penalty and it would be worse than what it would be if you just came in and changed them under grain. And I was like, oh, well, I guess I just need to go slower then. If I lose brakes, I'm just going to put around the racetrack and end up however many laps down that I end up. So they did acknowledge that they were willing to make up a rule. Denny Hamlin has spent years arguing that the sanctioning body sometimes decides matters on feel rather than on written text. By his own account, he received confirmation of that position in a single sentence. Sunday morning brought one last attempt at a fix. Chris Gale changed the air cooling ducts on the number 11, a modification he openly described as a 50-50 proposition. That change was not approved, which resulted in a to-the-rear penalty. That penalty was largely academic since Denny Hamlin had already qualified deep in the field. The fix did not work. Denny Hamlin later said his brake pedal went straight to the floor by lap 3. Chase Briscoe made it further before the same thing happened to him. Honestly, the first stage I had zero issues, and I was amazed that I didn't because I was expecting it. And then, in the middle of the second stage, I went into the corner and all of a sudden went to the floor just like yesterday. It was weird. I would have a restart and it would be good for 5 or 6 laps, then right back to the floor. And I mean, I was just pumping non-stop all the way around the racetrack. And sometimes you'd have a pedal and the next time it would just got to the floor. Denny Hamlin described his mental state before the start in terms he had never used before. This was the worst mindset I've ever had going into a race. I never felt beat before a race started and I thought I was done today. I knew there was a chance it could be fixed, but I knew it was still the same components that couldn't be fixed, so I just felt down. I switched my goals to needing some cars to wreck and maybe I get a top 25. His stated ambition that morning was survival. Stay on the lead lap, finish somewhere around 25th. He said he had to white-knuckle it every lap without knowing where his car was going to land when he got into the corner. He finished 5th. Chase Briscoe finished 6th. Ty Gibbs won the race. That honestly was the goal, but the team just kept working on the car. That allowed me to manipulate the car a little bit differently. They just did a great job of giving me something that I could somewhat get around the corners for 350 laps. The physical toll was visible afterward and it produced one more line. I'd retire at the end of the year if I had to do that every week, that's for sure. Denny Hamlin has already stated that his current contract, which runs through 2027, is likely his last. Here is the part that turns the whole weekend upside down. That disaster helped him. Denny Hamlin arrived at Iowa Speedway leading the standings by 84 points over Tyler Reddick. He left leading by 103 points over a new second-place driver. Tyler Reddick finished dead last after a lap 4 incident involving Eric Jones. That did not finish dropped him from second all the way to 4th in the standings. The order behind Denny Hamlin now reads Ty Gibbs at 103 points back, Ryan Blaney at 110 points back, and Tyler Reddick at 120 points back. 7 more drivers were mathematically eliminated from the regular season title fight at Iowa Speedway, including Chase Elliott, Kyle Larson, Christopher Bell, Chase Briscoe, Carson Hocevar, and Chris Buescher. Only 3 drivers can still catch him. Denny Hamlin can clinch the regular season championship at Richmond Raceway with only New Hampshire Motor Speedway and Daytona International Speedway remaining after that before the playoffs begin. The regular season title carries a seeding advantage heading into the 10-race championship run. He also found time to decompress that week, spending a day bass fishing in Texas with professional angler Chris Saldaw. The rule is written today exactly as it was written before Iowa Speedway. Nothing was amended on Sunday night. The next driver who discovers a bad batch of brake pads after qualifying will be standing in the same box making the same arguments, hearing the same answer. Both Chris Gale and crew chief James Small publicly stated that the sanctioning body needs to revisit the brake pad replacement policy specifically in the name of safety. Denny Hamlin is not asking to be handed a free pass. He is asking for a door. An avenue out when a genuine mistake or a genuine defect appears with a penalty attached that is severe enough to stop anyone from gaming it. So the question that closes this out is a straightforward one. Was the sanctioning body protecting the integrity of its rulebook, or did it admit in one sentence inside a hauler that the rulebook does not always decide things? Drop your answer below. If you believe rules are rules and every competitor has to live inside the same written boundaries, say so. If you believe there should be a safety asterisk at the bottom of the page exactly as Denny Hamlin described it, say that instead.